afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. I want us to start off by sort of synchronizing and doing a call and response. So repeat after me. Say, everything is all right.
It's all right.
Say, everything is all right.
It's all right.
So I know mental illness is kind of a heavy issue, but I'm going to try to keep it as light and interactive as I can for my section of it. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Start off the first question. Churchill, Beethoven, Michelangelo, Kanye West. What do they have in common? Any ideas? Suggestions? Shout it out.
Creative?
They're creative. Yeah, exactly. But spoiler, they also describe many symptoms of bipolar disorder. And not to brag, but I was also diagnosed with bipolar disorder in high school and in early college. And some of the symptoms are mania, which is irritability, flightiness, sleeplessness, and also I suffered from enervating bouts with depression, where I felt like I didn't have the motivation to even get out of bed. But I'd say the biggest impact has been dealing with it socially, having a hard time expressing to people that I am suffering from bipolar disorder, or from communicating how my actions change and vary because of that. So recently, however, whenever I go to the doctor, I'm no longer diagnosed with bipolar disorder. They don't prescribe me any medication. And it's only been a few years, so it doesn't seem likely that I've changed so fundamentally that I'm no longer have bipolar disorder, especially when I feel many of the same symptoms every day. I've just developed a series of habits that help ground me and allow me to sort of cope with the issues. So I guess my biggest takeaway from that experience is that mental health is a universal issue, and that diagnosis only comes into play when you feel that your mental illness is really restricting you from being able to engage in work, rest, and enjoyment, and relationships. So it comes from a wide array of different symptoms, and there's a wide array of different responses to those symptoms, but everybody is on some level dealing with the issues of mental illness in modern society. So, if it's such a universal issue, why is there so much stigma surrounding mental illness? You guys have any suggestions? Like anything in your personal life?
People are afraid of it.
People are afraid of it. Yeah, that's definitely a strong one. I hear that a lot of people are afraid of it. They don't really understand it that well. But what my theory is that people want to imagine themselves as sort of invulnerable. Like mental illness, if they don't think about it, if they don't acknowledge it within another person, it could never possibly happen to them. And because seeing that in another person is a reflection of how they might see that in themselves, it might be an indication that they're not really as in control of their thoughts and emotions as they would like to be. So the impact of stigma is really visible and apparent, but I'm going to illustrate this with a story. A couple semesters ago, I met this Indian student who came over from India, and he had been admitted to the local mental hospital after a bout of suicidal depression. And I started visiting him, started talking to him, started bringing him his favorite food, sushi, and we would discuss about his life and my life. And eventually I got a call from his mom in India, and she asked me how he was doing, and I explained that her son seemed to me to be really clear-headed, to be really intelligent and focused, and it seemed like his recent struggle had helped him sort of clarify what he wanted to do with his life. And also, it seemed that the mental health treatment that he was receiving actually seemed to be helpful, based by his own admission. Hearing this, she began to cry, because it was such a huge surprise to her, given that what everybody else had told her was about how scary and Spartan the mental health facility was, about how her son had gained a lot of weight and wasn't looking great, and also about how he was peeling at the skin from the electroshock therapy. And so all these examples of stigma had made her feel like when she met her son, she might not even recognize him, and she might not really connect with him in the same way she had before. And me telling her about it gave her a lot of relief. So stigma has had, a lot of different research done on it and on the impact that it has between stigma and mental health outcomes. Just one example is there's a schizophrenia study where patients with schizophrenia who were in families that had lower levels of stigma, in fact, had 1.5 times better outcomes when it comes to recovery from schizophrenia and schizophrenic symptoms. So the takeaway is that maybe some of you have come to this conference hoping to learn about, how are we supposed to identify early signs of mental illness and prevent them, and how do we follow up to make sure that our family is receiving the treatment they need. And the truth is that diagnosis isn't the goal here. You shouldn't be trying to diagnose your loved ones, because often the diagnosis carries more stigma than solution. Instead, diagnosis often comes from within, meaning that people need to be able to find space to identify the ways in which they're struggling with mental health. And in today's society, that can be really tricky because there is so much stigma surrounding the issue. So in order to allow people to express their own needs for, whatever mental health treatment, we have to foster an environment of understanding and low judgment that allows people to feel that they can come forward and explain that they're having a problem.